Welcome back to the Sean Trey Show. I've got a really interesting guest with me today. Now, would you like to tell people who you are and what you do?
I'm Steve Costello. I'm a guitar player primarily, and I also have a band called Bexley with me and my girlfriend. That's pretty much the baseline of it. Yeah, I'm first a guitar player, and then I've been working on the tech side of things recently for some bigger acts, doing playback and engineering and that kind of thing. But yeah, that's pretty much me.
That's pretty cool. Cool. Well, that's a good thing to be, man. It's like I always find it is really tricky when I ask people who are you and what you do, because it's like how do you sum that up, Because even on an Instagram bio, I've got 30 things listed, it's
someone just starts to do acronyms at that point, because you're I can fit how many letters? Just MD, guitar,
right?
just shove a few things in there.
That's awesome. I totally agree, man. Well, it's awesome. Now, primarily guitarist. When did you start playing guitar? How did you get into this journey of being a guitarist?
So my parents are both very into music. My dad was actually a drummer. He put himself through med school playing drums, which was kind of cool. He was
is a story to write home about, man. That's a cool story.
Yeah, he was in 6 or 7 different bands at one time, a polka band, a funk band, a blues band, just every night playing. And then he went to school for that. So I had that kind of upbringing. I used to just tap on the drums when I was a kid. I started that way, and then I had nobody to play with because my dad was a drummer, I was a drummer. All my friends wanted to play drums because we had a drum kit. So I was like, well, you know what? Why don't I try guitar so we can all play together? So, I kind of grew up jamming with my dad and all my friends. So it was pretty cool. I was probably I think 9, and then I quit because it hurt my fingers, and I started again when I was 11. So, I've been doing it since, I guess, 11.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, how did you, how people went about learning guitars is different. How did you learn? Did you have a guitar teacher? Did you just teach yourself? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I'm actually from a pretty small town in northern Canada. It's called Sudbury. So there's not there was a music school kind of, but just through the through the guitar store. So I started there, and they wanted to do the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star sight reading thing, and I was that's when I gave up. I was I can't do this. But then my dad, we would go to festivals in town and that kind of thing, and if there was a really cool guitar player who lived in town in one of the local bands, he would just go harass them and be like, can you teach my son? So awesome. I think at one point I had probably 5 nights a week with different local guys who just were in cool bands in our town. The main one was this guy Laurier, who taught me probably most of the foundation of my playing, which is pretty cool. And he was just a happy Frenchman living in this house nearby, and he would just play guitar all day long, and I would show up after school most nights, and he would teach me. So it's pretty cool.
That's really awesome. Yeah, man. That is awesome. It's beautiful. So many people will have, stories of especially people in music, people of these mentors that, were people that were just so profound in their journey. Now, do you have any other mentors that were, people that were really inspirational to you?
I mean, a big one, actually, an in-person mentor, not I followed this person's career or whatever. When I was 15, I think, I went to see Joe Bonamassa with my dad in Toronto.
Nice.
Yeah, which is cool. But after the show, I was hey, we hung around and tried to say hey to whoever would stay on stage. And Carmine Roja, his bass player, stayed up, and the keyboard player, Rick. And Carmine gave me some good advice, and he was honest with me. He's this is kind of what the reality of touring is, and this kind of thing, and what you kind of are expected of, what's expected of you. And being 15, I was oh Jesus, this is really cool. And down the line, I think I was maybe 18 or 19. I saw another show years later, and same thing. I saw him in the lobby, and I said, hey, I don't know if you remember. And he's like, oh yeah, you and your dad came to that show 4 years ago. And I was how do you remember that?
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and he gave me his number, and he actually helped get me down to LA from Canada, and has like kind of mentored me along the way, and like he's loaned me any piece of gear I've ever needed, and he's played on tracks for me, and he's given me advice along the way. So he's been like probably the biggest like actual tangible mentor.
That's
pretty
awesome.
Cool. Yeah, he's
That's
awesome. And he played
man.
with like Bowie and Rod Stewart. Like Let's Dance, it's him playing bass. So it for me, I was like, oh, shit, this guy's awesome. Yeah.
Bowie, man. That's next level.
Yeah, he's
that's
cool.
Amazing. And that's the cool part. But like that's what I love, right? We grow up idolizing these people. But at the same time, you know, to many people, that was just, you know, David, you know, or Dave, or, you know, whatever. It's like, and we see these people out there, but they needed help at some point in time. They were getting started at some point in time. And it's like for maybe someone in, you know, 20 years will watch this and go, oh, dude, it's an early interview with Steve.
Yeah, well, never know.
I hope so.
Yeah, me too.
Right? Now let's go forward. You started learning guitar. It started getting really into it. Now, how did you transition from, you know, a kid who liked to play with his friends to like, this is what I want to do? What was that aha moment for you?
I don't know that it was one moment. I think when I realized that it was going to be something different is when, you know, in high school, I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but they start like being like, where are you going to go to university or college? Like you start applying. Yeah. And my brain was like, oh, I'm good. Like I'm going to go do this. And everybody was sending out applications. So I was like, I think I'm good. I'm going to go keep playing. Nice. So I think I committed to it for like I'd already decided. I think it was in my brain. I'm like, this is what I'd like to do. It's the only thing I really enjoy. Not the only thing I enjoy, I guess. But when you're a kid going to school, I'm like, that's because I have to go. And then, you know, I did probably the bare minimum at school. I did fine in school, but I think I learned what was expected of me and did that, and then would go home and play guitar. So somewhere in there, I think I decided I was going to just do this.
Well, I think that's really huge. Like, because one of the things that I think one of the disservices of education is like, I was really good in school.
Yeah.
I excelled at many subjects. But you know what was awful about that? When it came to like choosing a profession, I had no idea what the heck I'm supposed to do. Like, I like reading. I was good at different subjects. And there was like, I started, you know, because I grew up with a family that was like, you know, a doctor's a great career. And I was pre-med. And I remember the day that I was in my my chemistry class. And I went in and I dropped it. And I handed my paper to the professor, who was famously brutal to all his students. And he's like, you're my top student. I was like, yeah, but I hate this, dude.
Yeah.
I really hate this. And then I changed over. I studied history. And the only reason I liked studying history was because I got to read really cool books. Yeah. And for me, that was really interesting. And like, I was really into like, when I was a history major, I got to read like all of the Greek, playwrights. And I got to read, there were some really cool classes that those guys got to study. And that was where my love of film, you know, and then I got to take some cool classes. And so I got into film just because of that. But like, I felt like I envy people who were like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Because it took me for freaking ever.
If it's any consolation, it still took for freaking ever. I was just doing that instead of school, I guess. I was still just like, I don't know where to go with this. But I was at least trying, I guess. I don't know. Like,
well, you got it. Thank you for being honest. But that's awesome.
I still don't know what I'm doing, but that's fair.
Right. Well, you know what? That's a good point, man. Like, I remember when I was a little kid and I'd look up at my mom and dad and go, oh, yeah, mom and dad have this all together. You know, dad knows everything. Oh, man. Now, I'm the age my dad was when I thought he had it all together. And I am just scrambling. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
chasing guinea pigs.
Right? Chasing guinea pigs that are spunky little assholes.
That's awesome.
before we started the podcast, I'm going to dive down that hole. No. I'm going to dive down that hole so the audience would know. We were having a conversation that guinea pigs are actually one of the spunkiest little spirited animals I've ever seen. My daughter has 2 guinea pigs, and they have fight to them, and they'll just look at you and be like, I don't like you. Just like, I feel like that's what they look at me like. And then they're like, but feed me. And then leave.
Now. Feed me now. That's awesome.
So tell me, like, you're now, you come down to LA, and you know, how are you going at your music career there in LA? How are you approaching it?
So I've probably been here for like 6 years-ish, on and off. Like, I was coming on and off and dealing with, you know, getting visas and all that kind of thing. So that was a bit of a learning curve as well, just being able to be down here. So that took some doing, but it's fine now. And I think when I got here, I was going back and forth for like events and that kind of thing, and like the NAMM show in Anaheim and that kind of stuff. So I came down for that one year. I think it was 2015, and I met Amanda, who's my girlfriend. We have the band Bexley together. So I met her at that time, and then we were both like, she lived in Seattle and I lived in northern Canada. So we kind of became friends long distance, and then got together later. And I think since then, like, her and I started writing music together. And she has like every piece that I don't have in my arsenal. She has it. Like, that's awesome. 10,000%. Plus she has most of what I have. So I'm kind of, that's like, awesome, but intimidating. Yeah, but she's exceedingly talented. So it's been, really that awesome. Has been a huge shift and change, because, you know, I get to write music and spend every day with somebody I really care about, and we have this thing together that we've been building. So yeah, that's been the latest journey, is this Bexley incarnation of it all. So
tell me about Bexley. What type of music do you guys play?
It's kind of like I said, she's from Seattle, so she kind of came from a grunge background, and I came from like kind of a classic rock, blues rock end of things. So it's I was going to
ask, what type of music were you guys getting exposed to up in Northern Canada? You know, is it going to be classic rock a ton?
Oh my God! So yes, I guess, but the interesting thing is, like, so I grew up with basically what my parents listened to. My dad had a jukebox, so we had like all 50s music when I was a little kid.
That's awesome.
Which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
And then he's like a outspoken hippie as well. So he, like, Zeppelin, I don't know that he owns any records other than Zeppelin anymore, like that he listens to in the car and that kind of thing. He just has like Zeppelin's catalog and he just drives to that. And my mom was like,
it's a good catalog to have, though. I mean,
100%. Yeah. It's definitely, for me anyway, it's, you know, it was like Hendrix, Zeppelin, that era. My mom was into like Queen and AC/DC and like more of like some of the more classic rock stuff, Iron Maiden and that kind of stuff. That's
pretty rad, man.
Yeah, my parents are pretty cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and then playing in that town, like, there wasn't really, when I was really young, like, there wasn't like a, you know, listen to our band's original music. There was a little bit of that, but it was like mostly what we did was like, I'm going to play you 65 cover songs now. And it was, you know, Hendrix, Zeppelin, a lot of AC/DC, like that. That's what people there wanted to hear too, which I get. Like, it's, you know, it's rad, but it was kind of basically like regurgitating what other people did, and then we would hide an original song in.
Yeah.
I mean,
what? No, the cover. That's awesome, man. Well, cover music is a double-edged sword, you know, because it can get you seen, but at the same time, it also, you know, you can get buried inside of other people's stuff. Now, Bexley, how do you guys approach music? How do you guys go about what is your vibe again? Let's get back to that.
So
Bexley, right?
Yeah, Bexley. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so it started, like, Amanda had her own thing, and I had my own thing. I was trying to do it as, like, I guess a solo artist, because I kept, like, rebuilding bands, and I don't know, trying to find a singer was always the hardest thing ever. So I tried to sing. I'm not a fan of it, but I did. I put out a record, under my own name, and then Amanda was doing things under her own name, and she kind of had a shift in her stuff that she was like, you know what, like I'd like to give it like it's sort of like a mononym and a band name type thing. It's like St. Vincent or I guess Cher, you know, just like you can call her Bexley or it's the band is Bexley. I was like, that's an interesting idea. It's like kind of like a good label, and you don't have to work. Like, there's a weird, especially in rock music, I think, about being called your own name. There's not a lot of like solo artists, rock people. Maybe, I don't know if that's right. I mean, there are, but they're usually it's like Paul McCartney, but he was also in the Beatles. So it's, I don't know. So
that's a good point. No, that's a really good point. Like maybe the only one I could think of would be Sammy Hagar.
Yeah, I mean, again, yeah, he's also in Van Halen, and like,
but he's also in Van Halen. But he's still he had his own thing. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
normally in rock, it's a band. You know?
Yeah, and I think that's where her and I both came from. Was like, you have a band and you play with that band and you want to be in a band, so we gave it a band name. And then that was like maybe 3 years ago, and she had already written an EP. With a songwriter friend of ours, like the two of them, like she came in with most of it, and he produced and co-wrote it. And that was the first EP that's out. So that was just her and him. And I came in at the tail end of that and started with like some of the editing and like, you know, computer side of things for that one. And as it progressed, then we did a single called Misfit Love that was her and I and that songwriter. And then this new album that just came out like a few weeks ago, that was just Amanda and I and our drummer Tosh, basically recording a record through the pandemic. So that's the latest anyway. It's been interesting putting it together, like kind of from the ground up. But where we're at now is like we're independent aside from distribution, and we've got this, you know, the EP, single, and the first record. I think the first record's the most representative of where it's headed.
Nice.
Because that's kind of maybe the truest sort of collision of the worlds. Like her and I and the drummer sort of doing everything ourselves, and I borrowed like a bunch of gear to record it because I have like friends from the tech side of things and like backline company friends that I was like, hey guys, nobody's on tour. Can I borrow some stuff? Like, so I got like mics and desks and everything. So it was pretty awesome. We did most of it in this room or our previous apartment, and then the drums in the drummer's garage. So
that's what I love, man. Like during COVID, right before COVID, I had the wherewithal. One of the things that I'm really good at in life, and this is a weird skill that I have, but it's a skill that I love. I'm really good at knowing what I need to buy before I buy it. And I just feel like I need to get a backup of something, you know? Like tonight, yeah. I had a couple of weeks ago, I was like, Dan, I need to get a backup, you know, Ethernet cable, just in case the other one goes out. And then I clipped the Ethernet cable tonight, and I was like, oh God. And I just, you know, I was like, oh, but I have a backup. And, nice. You know, and we had our main mic that we use in our home studio just went down last week. I'm very not happy about that. It's $1,000 mic. But when I fly back to the USA, I can get it repaired easy. But
yeah, I was going to ask, how is it getting stuff, getting gear like that out there? How, like, what's the?
There's a ton of people that sell stuff here. All right, there's a really weird law that except for like everything new is good, but like it's impossible to get stuff repaired. Like there are official distributors and repair people, but they just want to make money, man. So they'll be like, yeah.
Just buy a new one. It's broken.
Just buy a new one. It's broken. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but yeah. Versus if I come back into the States, I'm sure there's someone that easily could fix it. But there's this weird loophole in shipping things into Vietnam, right? So this is a crazy thing here. And I don't normally talk about stuff here. Just don't want to ruffle any feathers, but yeah. There's a really weird law they have, right? So they're not allowed to send secondhand electronics into the country, right? It's a banned thing officially. It's weird, all right? But so if I had to send a microphone out to get repaired, and they were sending it back, and they were like, and so I got a letter from customs that was like, is this new or is this secondhand? And I was like, well, it's secondhand. Like, oh, then we're going to destroy it. I was like, no, don't destroy it. It's mine. It's mine. And they're like, well, is it new or secondhand? I was like, well, it's new.
It's like
then you need
new.
to pay. But they said, if it's new, then you need to pay us import fees.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And that was the catch-22. And I was like, well, it's not new, it's secondhand. Then we're going to destroy it. I was like, no. And so, yeah, it's kind of tricky. It's kind of tricky. But there's everything you under the sun you can buy. But it's been really hard during the pandemic. Because here's the thing. Because everyone knows about those import fees, people hand carry stuff in when they were flying back and forth from the States. So someone would fly to the US, load up a couple suitcases with audio gear or whatever, and then they'd sell it here. And it was a great way to do it. But nothing was available during the pandemic. And so
it's hard.
Yeah, you couldn't get stuff. But it's weird. It's no
new toys.
Needless to say, I'm not getting mics shipped for repair. That's never happening again.
Fair.
But I had the wherewithal to build out a studio before COVID.
Nice.
And so I built out a small home studio, but it was enough that we were able to keep going during the lockdowns and such, which was great. Now,
Awesome.
how did the lockdowns affect you and your guys' music making? Sounds like you guys were using it to your advantage.
Yeah, I think we had been sitting on probably 70% of that record. Like, we maybe not finished, but the ideas were, 70% of the songs were kind of almost there, like sketches that had been sitting in the computer for a year, maybe some of them 2 years, 3 years, that were just ideas. And it gave us a really good opportunity to go through what we had sort of stockpiled and then arrange it a little bit, and then that sparked new ideas based off of how we were producing out the old ones, or the ideas, I guess. So yeah, it just kind of gave us time, which was awesome.
That's a huge deal, man.
Yeah, and luckily, again, like you're saying, we have most of a home studio to work with, especially guitars, vocals, bass, that kind of thing. We could do all that from home, no problem. And there's been a few companies that have been really kind to us, Boss gave us this tube amp, among other things. They gave us pedals, and they're the best people in this business.
That's
I think
awesome.
they've been super kind to us. They gave us this tube amp expander thing, so you could run real amps through virtual cabs, and that kind of changed the game for us a little bit too. So it was kind of just modeling the cabinet, but not the amp, and that kind of let me use all of my fun toys and sort of do it quietly in an apartment. So most of that record is that, which is pretty cool. I mean, I'd love to, go into a studio and crank it and do all that. But when you're in a pandemic and you're, independent musicians, this was an amazing get for us.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. And it's what I love is too, that there is, I love how wide open the music industry is. It's still changing dramatically. Streaming changed up the game. The ability to, and I know people hate on streaming, but the simple fact that I can literally get on my computer, if within a couple hours, get music up on a huge platform that most everyone's using, or all of these different platforms that people are using, whether it be YouTube or Spotify or Apple Music, it's easy to get it up there, and you have an infinite number of options of distributors, and that's the crazy cool part,
Yeah.
that the game has changed. And certainly there are, still things that people have to deal with. You have to go through, how do you get, everyone wants to get onto the playlist, how do you get onto that list? And there's companies that are, selling access to those lists, even though they're not supposed to. But, it used to be that if you wanted to be a band that made it, you had to have either some type of connection or an in, or just a little bit of luck, man. And just kind of slogging and the opportunity to kind of just put the work in, and then you got there.
Yeah.
So it's an awesome time.
It is an awesome time. I think like you're saying though, because anybody can do it, the sheer volume has gone up, right? So that's the part that's being interesting and hard to navigate. But I think overall it's probably a significantly better option that anybody can do it, which is cool because it just breeds more and more creativity. I think if there's more to listen to, but also if there's like, I think it's something like 40,000 new songs are uploaded on Spotify every day,
right?
Which is
Right.
a mind-numbing amount of songs.
That's insane. But
That's a lot.
My angle, if you don't mind me trying to share some of what I think is
for sure.
maybe an angle to work on it, because I'm still figuring this shit out too, honestly.
Yeah, we all are.
But one of the things that I'm working, like with this podcast, right? Because there's a ton of them. Like right now, podcasts are hot.
Yeah,
and it's like Hansel from Zoolander. He's so hot right now.
Hansel.
Total. And I threw a Hansel reference into my podcast. I win for today.
Yeah.
Man, Zoolander references are great. And you got it, which made me not feel old, which is awesome too.
Well, now it's going to make me feel old. I don't know how to feel.
No, and it's like, yeah, like, Zoolander's not that old, but like some people are like, oh yeah, that's old stuff. And it's like, God. Oh,
It holds up.
And it still holds up. And Zoolander 2 was nowhere near as good, but it was still pretty cool because they tried to recycle some of the jokes. But I mean, I just enjoyed it for nostalgia. But then the fact that they had a part 2 for nostalgia is also makes me feel old. But coming back to Hansel and being so hot right now. So with podcasts, I've seen a lot of people do it. And so my friend and I had this discussion about like, how many should I be releasing? And my friend's first thing was like 1 a week. And I was like, dude, I'm going to get buried. I'm going to get absolutely buried. If I'm releasing 1 a week. And so I was trying to do 7 days a week and I was just like hitting a wall. Yeah. And I was just like exhausted from the recording and stuff. So I was like, I cut back to shooting 3 days a week and then just trying to, Monday to Friday, putting out a podcast. And it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I still try to keep the quality up. I'm making sure they look nice. I create nice templates for each person and the production value is up. But what I've noticed is that the algorithms are starting to swing in my favor because I have a certain number and the quality's up and I'm getting interactions. But also, like, one of the things that I think is really important is kind of building out your network. And so, like, having people that you're interacting and working with that are kind of like those people, like, and you see this in like the people that are really successful on YouTube, they collaborate constantly to get into other networks. And I think that's a huge deal. So,
yeah, I think that's something we've been learning here as well, because there's so many people, especially even just in this town, trying to do the same things.
Yeah.
You kind of are encountered with people who are either very genuine about it or like just trying to see what you can offer kind of thing.
There's a ton of those, man.
Yeah, we've met a lot of those too. But I think the cool thing that's starting to happen, it took a long time, is like we're starting to make friends who are sort of like-minded, even if they play different music or they're on the business side of things. Man. Like, yeah, it's just like they're good people and like they do what they say they're going to do, and we'll do whatever we can. I mean, we don't have as much to offer in a lot of the cases, but like whatever we can do, we'll be there and we'll be happy to be there, kind of thing. So I think
I grew up with my dad's the type of guy who'll take his shirt off for anyone and give it to them if they ask for it.
So and I think
you got to be willing to do that, man. Like, I mean, even if there's going to be someone who might take advantage of you, I would prefer to be the guy who's built the reputation up of being willing to help.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I think it's like vastly underrated, especially in a competitive business, I guess. But
you know what? The competitive. I mean, that's something I was talking to someone about recently. Though the competition is inflated. Like there's enough work, man. There's enough stuff. Yeah. There's room for people. You can have more people on a rock playlist, man. Just to have fun with it.
Yeah, I think people panic. And like, I have to make it, or I have to whatever, and then it feels like there isn't enough space for everybody, and then they they plow through everybody, and then now we all know kind of like where you stand, I guess. But
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Now, how do you go about creating the music that you want to sing, that you want to create?
A lot of noodling, just playing
Nice.
around. Amanda's great at like pulling a song out of nowhere. She's like, "Oh, I have this like voice note that I jotted down yesterday. Like I just like it's just a thing on my phone. I'm like, there's like 3/4 of the song finished there, so let's just work on that." So
That's awesome.
we'll pull that in. It's usually acoustic and vocals, and then we'll start producing it out like how we think that, you know, I'll program some simple drums to get us going, and, you know, either lay a bass line down or some kind of cool guitar sound or just the bed of it, and then we get kind of weird. We have a lot of pedals and things like that. We tether everything together and try to make weird sounds that you wouldn't maybe expect, and I think that's what we did for this record. Was like the thing that tied all of these sort of ideas we had together was like, how do we produce it in a way that's cohesive? So there's like acoustic songs on the record, and then there's like pretty much metal songs on the record. Like there's like, it goes sort of the whole scope, but the production is knit together in such a way that the sounds kind of tie the whole thing. It's like the sounds and her voice, and her thing is Lane Staley's like, and Chris Cornell are her two like top
Nice.
vocal inspirations, but the Alice in Chains end of things, just like harmonies on harmonies on harmonies. So that's where she comes from. So I think that plus the weird production-y sounds kind of tied the whole thing together. And that's sort of how we write, is like she'll come in with the bones of something, and then we start producing it out together, and it takes shape and begins to form that way.
Now, what are some of your dreams? Like, what would you really like to accomplish with your music? I'm not asking things like world peace or things like that.
Yeah, world peace. I have guinea pig. No, I think
righteous. That was like that was a very much like a Bill and Ted's type of a.
Yeah, exactly.
Thing.
Yeah, I think overall, I mean, both of us are like, we just want to be able to make a living doing the thing we really enjoy. So whatever form that takes, I'm hoping it's kind of the way we envisioned it. We'd like to be a touring act that can come home and make cool music that we like and make enough money to live. That's, you know, I'd like to get it to the highest level we can, but as long as we don't have to get real jobs, then I'm happy.
Right. Amen to that. Right.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of your personal musical inspirations, like sound wise? What do you want to, you know, what inspires you, and what do you want to aspire towards?
Well, I came from like I said earlier, like the classic rock type stuff, and I just liked, and it's probably like cop out to pick this one, but the Led Zeppelin, like the How the West Was Won live thing they did, like where they compiled all of that, and it's a weird thing to be your favorite Zeppelin record, but I think it is because they were just all on, and like it was clearly four dudes really going for it, and they were, you know, it sounds massive. So I think like that end of things where it's just like kind of raw and like what four people in a room can do is pretty awesome. And then on the other side of that, like later in life, I got more into, through my other band, my bass player Kev got me really into Queens of the Stone Age, and that kind of set off a whole other tangent for me of just like sort of how a band can, like if you go from the beginning of that when they were like making kind of spooky music, and it was like cool stoner rock from the desert, but like you're also sort of afraid of them. And then the latest record, you know, they did with Mark Ronson, and it's like almost dancey in a lot of it, but the whole way, like the whole journey through all those albums they did, it still sounds like that band, even though like some of this, like a lot of the songs, it's like a different singer. So I'm like that. That's always been cool to me when you can have this cast come through, but the underlying sound of the band is still there, even though the sound's changing. And I think that's something that we're trying to get, is like, how do we sound like us, even if it's something new?
I like that.
And I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it does. I mean, that's one of the things too that it's interesting to see how my wife is a famous singer here in Vietnam, right? And her first hit, she was a original winner of Vietnam Idol, like the very first one in 2007, which is pretty awesome. And one of the things that's interesting is she's still known for her first hit.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but that in absolutely no way stands for what musically she's into now.
Yeah.
You know? And so she's like constantly trying to push her envelope, but it's not necessarily what people understand from her. But you know what?
Yeah.
But where she's at, she's like, good music's good music. And at the end of the day, if I make something that I really like and love and I feel good about, that's where it's at, man.
I think that's what it's supposed to be. Like, you can kind of go one of two ways. I mean, you can go both ways too. Like, you can just make the things you like and then release things that other people like, or you can try to marry the two, or you can do both under different names or whatever. But as long as you're still enjoying it, I think that's kind of like, what's the point if you don't like it? I mean, money, I guess, but this is a bad business to get in for the money. Like, you know what I mean? Unless you've already made it and you're just like continue to cash in, which fine. Some people, I mean, maybe that would be the path we would go. I don't know. I hope not. But
yeah. Well, you know, it's like you know, Bob Dylan. You know, he had this one sound, and then you know, then he found the electric guitar, and he was just like, what is happening? You know, and it was just a different sound, and it's like, but for a lot of people, you look back at people commenting on that at the time, and people were just like, it's not right. You know, it's like, but it was his thing, man.
I play with this guy. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I play sometimes. It's been a while, but I play with a good friend of mine. His name is Mark Wood, and he's an electric violinist. He was one of the founding members of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra and all that kind of stuff. And he kind of invented the electric violin. It's pretty cool. If you ever see one that's like shaped like a flying V, those are the ones he makes those. Yeah, he makes those.
That's rad.
Yeah, he's very, very. He's like exceedingly talented. He's a genius on his instrument, and he invented his instrument, which is awesome. But he was a student. I think he played viola at Juilliard, and then was like going through the program, doing what you're supposed to do, and then he heard the Beatles. Yeah, then he heard the Beatles, and he's like, I can't. Like, I want to do that. Like, and then he heard Hendrix. He's like, no, I want to do that. Like, I want to keep playing when I'm like my instrument, but I want to do that. So he left Juilliard, invented his electric violin. Like, it's an 8-string, or 7-string, violin. It goes from the violin register to the bass register, and now he's like, you know, in my brain, like in terms of virtuosos, like Steve Vai is one of the like top for like, I'm like, you just have command, whether you like that type of music or not. I'm like, you watch him play it, I'm like, that thing is part of his body. This is the same with Mark with the violin. It's just like, it's second nature, just entirely, and he's inventing sounds and stuff. So somebody like him can go into something so structured like Juilliard and then be like, wait, no, the Beatles and then Hendrix, and just be like, no, let's do this. I'm going to go do that. Just ditch it all to, you know, take a chance like that. I always thought that was pretty cool. When people can just sort of know what they want and they hear something, they're like, I'm going to just go for it. So he's been another one kind of in my world that was like, it is possible.
Yeah. I think it takes, one of the things that I think it comes back to, and I think this is one of the things that I see in your story too, is it takes courage to make a change. It takes courage to leave Northern Canada and come down to LA. It takes courage to try things, man.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah. It's either, maybe it's courage or being naive. I don't know, but
I think courage is there's a mixture of the two. I think courage takes a little. Imagine that, you know, a person charging into battle or whatever. You know, it's like, the reality is they have to kind of have a little bit of naivety to like, I'm gonna win. You know. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. All right. I hope so.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I think, I don't know, it's scary a lot, but it's nice having, again, like we're saying, with the good people that you find around you. You know, Amanda's awesome. Our whole sort of crew around us has been really cool. And it's all, you know, just friends at this point. We're not like on a label or anything like that. Right. So it's just literally favors and friends and how can we help each other. So
But that's the best thing, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some projects that you're working on right now?
So we're trying to get a few co-writes done with a few friends of ours in town, like maybe doing some co-release stuff. It's still in the works, but we're thinking that might be a fun next step. Would be do like kind of like you were talking about having collaborators online and that thing, but like not doing whatever featuring Bexley or Bexley featuring whomever, just doing it as like a proper both bands. This is our song.
Yeah,
like, it's not like, hey, look at us. It's like, no, like this is the thing our two bands made. So I think we're gonna try a few of those.
I like that. I whenever you get into the like splitting hairs of this person featuring this, it's just like it's always a little awkward.
I know. I did one that way, like featuring my drummer at the time. Like we were friends, but we're like, how do we didn't think of doing it like as two people's names kind of thing. It was like my project because it was through what I was working on and
that makes sense.
Yeah, featuring him, and I was like, isn't there not a better way to do this? So, it felt, I don't know, it just feels weird to me. But that's actually another cool Queens of the Stone Age thing. Was like on one, I think the record before this one, they always have cool people on it, but it's not like one of the songs, like Fairweather Friends, I think, has Elton John, and it just like you have to go read in the liner notes that he's even a part of it. Like it's not like featuring Elton John. Yeah, it's Queens of Stone Age, and you go read it, and you're like, holy crap, like Trent Reznor's on this one, Dave Grohl's on this one. Right. It's like more of a, we're just making art, here it is, you want to learn about it, you can read about it.
That's my point. Yeah, man, just like make awesome stuff, and then just, who cares about the labels, man? I mean, certainly everyone wants recognition, everyone deserves to be paid, all stuff like that, but...
We'd like help, I think. We would just like... Oh, hell. Right. That's okay. Even like pretty much if you see something from us online, like video or photos, any of that stuff, like we're doing photo shoots in the apartment, like we're putting green screens up. The video stuff, if there's a few off the new record, like 2 of them are from in the pandemic, like where one of them's against our kitchen wall, and then another one is like we bought like a cheap green screen. And then beyond that, like the last couple have been our friend Jonathan, who's a drummer, has a really nice camera and is very talented. We would rent a space for a day and throw as much in as we could. Like just be like, all right, we're going to do 3 looks because I think we can pull that off, and we're going to film it all. I'll just give me all the files. I'll edit it. So it's just become like we're trying to create our sort of internal machine to keep everything rolling. But help with that would be awesome.
Right. No, I'm with you, man. Like I'm cranking out these podcasts, and today when I was sitting there and I just finished, and I yesterday I shot my wife's music video myself.
Awesome.
Completely, because we just finished the pandemic, and it's like I lost my team, and that's okay. Yeah. But I'm just like, I was editing, I'm shooting, I'm doing everything. I have someone who does the mixing and mastering, thank God. That's
the same. We don't. That's the one step. We're like, you know what? Please take this.
Please take this. But like, there's a good point. Like getting that help and finding people who believe in you, believe in what you're doing is really awesome. And not just believe in you and go, I believe in you, but believe in you and are like, how can I help? Those people are so important to find in your journey. They're out there.
We've been lucky. We found a number of them now, but I mean, it's taken for this project, and it's taken like 6 years to like start gathering the people who aren't full of crap, basically, and I don't know, and like I genuinely we appreciate anybody who's been like, I really like this. What can I do to help? Like even if it's just, can I introduce you to somebody or whatever? Like there's been a lot of it, and they've all been very kind. I think we've been super fortunate on that end. And even companies like I was saying, like Boston Roland, like. They've, anything we've needed, they've been like, take it. Same with Amanda. She's endorsed with Yamaha. They're like, what do you need?
It's really cool.
Here, have it. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and every little thing like that has helped a ton. So I think we've been super fortunate.
That's really awesome, man. Well, I hope that more good things keep coming. Now, if you could give some advice to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
I think maybe this isn't going to run well on the tails of what I just said, but Maybe not trust people a little less, but just be a little bit more confident what you have to bring to something, and like not look for shortcuts. Like I've been told a lot of times, like, oh, you should be a part of this and do this thing for free because it's going to help you in X, Y, and Z, and it's like never does. So I would just say have more confidence in yourself and just work hard, keep being kind to people, and you'll put the pieces together. But I think
take
the biggest
chances,
one is,
but be wary of when those people come and go, I've got this great opportunity,
Yeah, that's kind of how we approach everything now. We're kind. We're like, awesome, let's hear about it. But don't just jump because you think you need the help, I guess. It's like, be confident what you have to bring to the table. It's probably that. It's a learning curve.
I'm glad you did bring it up because it's an important balance, You need help, but you also need help from I'm not going to say the right people because that sounds so judgmental. You need help from people who are willing to invest in you, truly invest in you.
And I think on the other side of it, the flip side is acknowledge what it took for them to do that when they didn't have to, and reciprocate. Just be good to people. Like that's pretty much it. Like that.
And also understand that you to come back to what you're saying, you have something of value that they see is worth helping. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think you have to see it first. That's the thing, is like, you have to know you have something, even if it's not the greatest thing. I know what I'm good at. And I know what I'm terrible at. So I'm still learning, but I'll work hard and I'll show up. So
I think showing up is some of the most important thing. I was really proud of my daughter today. My wife told me something when I was editing some video earlier, and my daughter was cleaning with her mom. It's a hot day here. I mean, it's the tropics, and my daughter was sweating. She was up cleaning, helping her mom clean some stuff. My wife gets into these missions. When she cleans, she goes at it. So it was like a deep clean day, and they were going at this room while I was downstairs working on my wife's music video. And my wife said my daughter was really tired, and she looked up, and my wife's like, "You should take a break." And she looked up and she said this. She's like, "When I start something, Mommy, I don't quit." That's like, oh.
Nice. That's awesome.
You're right. I'm doing this parenting thing right.
That's awesome.
I don't know if it was me and my wife doing something right, or if it was just like she's just so much like us. That's probably more what it is. But it was like that tenacity.
Yeah, that's a win.
She's 5, man.
Jesus. Yeah, it's awesome. Well, she's gonna go far. That's awesome. She's already got it.
She's a firecracker, man. My daughter, she runs me around like nothing else. But part of it is the vision, the talent, the skill, but part of it's that willingness not to quit.
Yeah, I think the other one is just be creative on all fronts too, including other work. As I like the
okay. Tell me about this.
Well, going back to the school thing,
the advice for yourself, yeah.
Yeah, well,
and the school thing.
In like high school, when they're prepping you to go out and do something you're going to do the rest of your life, I didn't even know the job I do as like my side hustle thing now. I didn't even know it existed. So like I do playback for other artists. Like I run backing tracks and that kind of thing is like another sort of, it's something I do for us anyway, like and recording and that kind of thing. So like I'll go out and do gigs for like I worked for St. Vincent for a while, and Gwen Stefani on and off, just doing tracks. Like, so it's something that I didn't even know.
So you create tracks for them, or you just do like a backing track?
It's like backing track stuff, and like it's not replacing anything real. Like, so just to be clear, they are performing and they're doing their thing. But if there's like a section that's got strings and 6 keyboards and there's like 2 keyboard players, whatever, like things that would be impossible without a massive band.
I understand.
I'm running like.
So you're helping add layers.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like I've done a few, I won't name them, but that aren't doing anything for real. But that's they're performing. But the core people have all been very talented, and the job is basically it's like almost conducting from off stage a little bit. So I've got a headset and I'm talking to them like between songs, letting them know what's coming up, reminding them of cues. They're playing to a click track, so everything aligns with the video wall. I'm sending time code out so that it's triggering the lighting and video in their worlds. And it's just things I had no idea were even a job
like
when I was a teenager.
Yeah,
So I didn't understand any of that, but it's directly related to our world, and it's helped me with our band. Like, I've learned about the production end of things, I've learned about the touring end of things, like at a higher level than I would have coming at it just as a guitar player. Like, I snuck
really
in
awesome.
a back door, and I've just been observing and learning and meeting really nice people. And
that's huge.
Yeah, it was. I would say that's another thing is like, don't be afraid to go off on a bit of a tangent. And I'm always in my head being like, okay, how can I use this for us and like for our music?
This is my 2 podcasts tonight. Both people mentioned that tangents are good things, so that's really interesting.
I think so. Yeah. Well, even musically too. If you're going to go off on a tangent and record something that's never going to be heard by anybody, it's probably still good, and you're still going to learn something, or you'll probably feel better at the end of it, at least. You know, I think it's a good way. Man. It's good for your brain to go and learn and do things. So, yeah.
I 100% agree. Well, it's really interesting that, like, having side hustles is such a good thing, especially when it's something that can teach you about your main thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I did a gig last night. It was the release event for the new Call of Duty game. It was like live streamed to YouTube. And yeah, it was like, but a weird, like, I was working with an orchestra they performed at the event, and I was like basically they had to play along to a video trailer of the game, but it was a live orchestra doing it, so they have to know where they are in the song, so everything's to a click and to a grid, and I'm sending the conductor the click, and it was just like, it's an interesting thing, and you learn, and like, I got to meet a really talented conductor and composer last night, and
that's awesome.
Pick his brain a little bit. So it's stuff like that you wouldn't expect it. Like, yes, I'm 90% of the job. People tell you it's just like, I'm hitting the space bar, like, all right, go. But I'm learning a lot while I'm there. So
yeah, I think that's a huge thing, man.
Yeah.
I worked on this one movie when I was living in LA, and it was just kind of like a grunt type of a acting job. I was like, I got to work with the lighting team to stand there while they're prepping the shots, and the people are like, well, that's a really horrible acting job. You're not doing acting. It's not real. And I was like, dude, I got to learn every single day I was on set.
Yeah.
Like, how it was run and how people were doing movies. And then that became the education that I had for when I got behind the camera later in my career. So it's like, man, as long as you're learning.
Yeah. I mean, I come at it like I know nothing most of the time, and I try to ask questions, because I'm like, I don't know, the other big thing too is like, every one of these like entertainment careers has their own terminology. They have their own like protocols. So it's just like, even learning that, so when you go in to play a gig yourself, the sound guy doesn't hate you. Like, I know how to, you can communicate properly. So you're not like, hey, can you plug this in? And they're like, where do you want it? And you're like, oh, just plug it in. Like, I don't know. Like, you need to be able to communicate and relay what you need, because there are other people doing their job. And if you're annoying, they're going to be annoyed.
Right. I think that's a good point. You know, it helps you get past that imposter syndrome that I don't deserve to be here. You know, it's like, well, maybe you do, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I still have that.
Oh, dude, who doesn't? I have that in every aspect of my life. So don't worry about that, man.
Yeah.
Well, brother, I really appreciate your time today, man. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
this was
thank you.
Very
appreciate
interesting conversation. Now, you're always welcome back. If you guys ever have anything fun that you want to talk about, man, just reach out.
Absolutely. Maybe we can do Bexley next time. Get the whole
I'm all
unit.
for that. Get the whole unit together, man. That'd be awesome.